Welcome to the UPoker Academy Poker Lecture Series designed to make you a better poker player. This is Lesson 3, Position. Position is defined as the place you sit at on the table relative to the button. So position progresses from the small blind to the big blind, to early position, to middle position, to late position to the button. And it progresses left around the table like this. So we're in the small blind, big blind, early position would be these two seats, middle position, late position, and then the button. And the way position works is simple. Early position, bad. Late position, good. The later you are, the more options you have for playing your hand. For example, when you're on the button, you know that you're going to be in position throughout the entire hand, no matter what, and this allows you the option to essentially control the size of the pot. So the further you are around the table, closer to the button, the more hands you can play, the more you can raise, the more often you can raise, and the more options you have for re-raising or calling before the flop, or slow playing after the flop, or playing fast after the flop. But when you're in a position like mine, you can't really dictate that, because as soon as somebody else bets, I have to decide, do I want to play or do I want to fold? Because I'm in such bad position. This is the worst position on the table. But all hope is not lost, because on the next hand I will be on the button, and we'll talk a little bit about button strategy. In the meantime, let's talk a little bit about blind strategy. In the blinds, you are going to be in the worst position, but you already have some money invested. So what this means is, if you're allowed to check, that's great. If you're allowed to just call the small blind, that's usually good. So we are going to play some hands from the blinds that we wouldn't play from any other position, simply because we have a little bit of money already invested. But now we are on the button. On the button, we're going to be playing a lot of hands, especially hands with two high cards, or hands that make straights or flushes. But King 2 only has one high card, and the kicker's pretty bad, so we're not going to play that. For example, if we'd played King 2 here, anybody with a better king would have us dominated. So you can play more hands on the button. I tend to play about 40% of my hands from here, whereas from early position, say the first position after the blinds, I only play about 10% of my hands. And as my position moves around the table, I play more and more hands. And that's essentially how every poker professional does it. Nobody plays lots of hands from early position and doesn't play from late position. That's a losing strategy, and you won't survive very long if you do that, because position is so important on the table. And if you fail to take your position into account, you're going to be playing hands when you shouldn't. So one of the first things I ask, in fact, I would say the first thing I look at before I decide to play a hand, is what position I'm in. And that's going to dictate, how much I'm going to raise, whether I'm going to raise, whether I'm just going to fold, and all kinds of other things like that. For example, in early position, especially in the blinds, you typically want to raise 4 to 5 times the big blind. This is not the case in multi-table tournaments, but in cash games, which we're playing now, that is the case, because you're going to be playing such a strong range of hands, and you're going to have the weakness of being out of position for the rest of the hand. You probably want to raise 4 times the big blind from early position, whereas from late position, I might raise 2 times or 3 times the big blind. If I've got a hand like 4-5 suited and we're deep stacked, I might just raise 2 times the big blind, just a mid-raise, as a little pot sweetener. The important thing to note is that other players in the hand, where they're positioned, can help you determine whether or not you're going to play a hand and how much you're going to raise. So for example, if an under-the-gun player raises, and I've got something like Ace-10, I'm most likely going to fold it. Because by raising under the gun, the player has indicated to me that he's got a very strong hand. And I've got to take him at his word that he does, because he has made that first raise. And I'm most likely just going to fold and wait for a better spot to put my money in. Now a hand like Ace-6 is playable from the button, but we're now in kind of middle or early position, however you want to define it. And it's not playable from here. So there's a starting hand chart on riskoriented.com in the tools section. If you check that out, that'll give you the basics for what hands you can play in different positions. But I don't want you to follow that chart for very long, just until you get your poker legs about you. The reason for that being is it changes. You can play depending on your the table makeup of the players who are at your table. You can play more or fewer hands than that seating chart, that starting hand chart dictates. But the essential rule of position is to play more hands in late position. And the reason for that is, like I said earlier, controlling the pot. Now let's talk about what that means. When I'm in late position, I can choose how many bets I want to put in the pot. I can bet the flop, turn, and river, and force somebody to call me to continue playing. I can bet the flop and then sneakily check the turn if I want to limit the size of the pot, or induce a bluff on the river. Or I can bet the flop and the turn and show strength, and then if I don't want to put in that river bet, I have the option not to, and that's really what it comes down to. The river bet is such a significant bet in a poker hand. It's the largest bet that's going to go in. And the option to make or decline that bet is a huge advantage, and that is why we take care to notice our position when we're playing poker. So thank you for joining us at UPoker Academy. Please check us out on riskoriented.com for more poker strategies delivered directly to your YouTube account. Please like and subscribe to us. And for more poker strategy right now, continue on to our next poker lecture by clicking here.